By playing at a level 10, doing the exercises, I'm sure that you would agree that you would get more out of this program. I mean, without a doubt, you would get more out of this program. And I want you to get the most out of this program. But you know what I really want you to get? I want you to get the most out of tomorrow. I want you to get the most out of next week. I want you to get the most out of this year and next year. And ultimately, I want you to get the most out of your life. So I want to encourage you to adopt the mindset of the level 10 mindset. And I want you to think about this. Over the last 30 days, as you've been going to work on a daily basis, what level have you been playing at? What level have you been playing at in referrals? What level have you been playing at in time management? What level have you been playing at in making your calls? And it's not just about your business life. This concept impacts all areas of your life. My wife and I, we recently had our first child. I have a 6-month-old. And if you have children, I want you to think about this. Over the last 30 days, what level have you been playing at with your children? If you're married like I am or have a significant other in your life, over the last 30 days, what level have you been playing at with your significant other? What level have you been playing at in your health? What level have you been playing at spiritually? Because my belief is that you get out of life what it is that you put into it. And all the rewards are for those that play full out. And think about this. Who decides what level we play at as human beings? That's right, we do. Make a decision today to join the level 10 club. Make a decision today to get yourself to play at a high level in your life. And I don't just mean high energy and high enthusiasm. Level 10 for me in the area of time management is that you start off the day with a written plan for the day. Level 10 for me at making your calls is if you're supposed to make 25, that you make 25. It's simply following through on what you're supposed to be doing and taking action. As you're listening to me right now, what if you made a decision to play at a level 10 in your life? That could impact positively every single day that you live on this planet for the rest of your life. And think about this. Most people, what level do they play at on a daily basis? Most people, I think, they go through life at a 4 or less. And what I'll share with you, I wasn't always playing at a level 10, but once I learned the level 10 mindset and I made a decision to do it, the rewards have been absolutely incredible. So now that you're committed to playing at a level 10, I have an exercise for you. I have an assignment for you. I want you to go out and purchase a hardbound or leather-bound journal. And I want you to use that journal as you go through this audio program. This will help you get the absolute most out of the program. It will keep all of your ideas and thoughts organized in one place. And the reason why I want you to purchase a hardbound or leather-bound journal, instead of writing notes on scrap paper or sticky notes or yellow tablets, is that oftentimes the yellow tablets, the sticky notes, and the scraps of paper get lost over time. And I can share with you that the journals that I've kept in my life, I seldom have lost one of those journals. I've been able to permanently capture the great ideas that I've learned in those journals. And I want to share with you one of my favorite quotes from Napoleon Hill, author of Think and Grow Rich. Be certain to use 2 of the greatest yet simplest working tools ever invented. Tools used by a genius like Thomas Edison. A pencil and a piece of paper. For he always had handy paper and pencil, and thus you, like him, will record the ideas that come to you day or night. This is a habit that I've adopted. Consistently, I bring my journal with me, I have a pen or a pencil, and I permanently capture those great ideas down in that journal. And why journals are so important is that you can advance an idea further on paper than you can in your mind. And the first time I was ever introduced to the journal strategy, it was from my mentor, Anthony Robbins. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't implement it. He was sharing with all his energy and enthusiasm and passion the power of keeping a journal. Yet despite all that, for whatever reason, I chose not to take action. I mean, think about that. Have you ever had that experience? You learned a great idea, $1 million idea, but yet for whatever reason, you didn't take action? Well, that was an example for me. And I didn't take action. And I was doing a training one day. It was for a company called Precision Offset. It's a printing company in Orange County, California. You never know what's going to happen at any given moment in your life. And in this meeting, the meeting ended, and a gentleman named Cortland came up to me. And he asked me, he said, Eric, have you ever heard of Jim Rohn? And I said, well, of course I've heard of Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn, if you're not familiar, Anthony Robbins' mentor. Tony Robbins worked for Jim for 5 years before Tony became Tony Robbins. At least his popularity. I mean, obviously he was always Tony Robbins, but he became popular after he worked for Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn, JimRohn.com. So Cortland asked me if I'd ever heard of Jim Rohn. I said, well, of course I have. He said, Eric, come up into my office. And so I went up into Cortland's office. He said, Eric, would you like to speak to Jim Rohn? And I looked at him kind of funny, like, what? I don't understand. What are you talking about? He said, yeah, would you like to speak to Jim Rohn? Turns out Cortland is one of Jim's relatives. And I looked at him, I said, well, yeah, I guess so. Cortland calls Jim at his house, gets Jim's voicemail, leaves him a message. He was getting ready to hand me the phone. And after he got off the phone, Cortland looked at me, and I didn't know that my life was about to change. I didn't know that thousands of my clients' lives were about to change when he looked at me. But he simply said this, Eric, do you keep a hardbound journal? Now, this is a strategy that I'd learned a few years prior from Anthony Robbins. And I looked at him and I said, well, I keep an idea file in my computer. He said, Eric, that's not what I said. What I said was, do you have a hardbound journal? And I just looked at Cortland and I said, well, no. And that's all he said about the journal. We talked a little bit more, exchanged business cards, drove back to San Diego. A few months passed. I get a phone call from Cortland. Cortland says, Eric, it's Cortland here. Jim's coming to town. He's going to be teaching a program at the Disneyland Hotel. Would you like to come as my guest? And I said, Cortland, that's an amazing gift. I would love to come as your guest. And so Cortland got a ticket for me, invited me to come as his guest. And on that day of the seminar, I went and met Cortland at his office, and together we drove over to the seminar. And once I was in Cortland's car, he handed me a box with a bow on it. And he gave me the box. He said, Eric, this is for you. And I wasn't expecting a gift. I mean, he was giving me a nice enough gift by giving me a free ticket to the seminar. And so on the drive over, I opened up the box. And in the box was a beautiful hardbound journal. And I opened it up, and I was excited about it, but I really didn't get the full value because I had never used a journal before. And so I thanked Cortland for it. It was a very nice gift, but I didn't really get it, to be honest. We went to the seminar. Cortland says this, Eric, you have to have a journal if you're going to attend a Jim Rohn seminar because you never know what Jim's going to say on that day. I said, well, great. So we sat in the very front row, and I took 13 pages of notes on that day. I still have that journal. That was my first journal. I've filled up numerous journals since then. And the most powerful ideas that Jim Rohn shared on that day, I still have that information. And why that's so important is because of this distinction. Put this in your journal. Out of sight, out of mind. Out of sight, out of mind. Every time I now attend a sales meeting, I attend a seminar, I read a success book, I have a hardbound journal with me. And now that I've been doing this strategy for over 3 years, I can share with you, it's been one of the most powerful concepts to advance my business and sales career. And so I've shared that strategy now with thousands upon thousands of my clients. And many of them have gone out and taken action and purchased a hardbound journal. Now, you see, the idea by itself, it doesn't produce a result. The only thing that produces a result is the idea put into action. Tony Robbins shared the strategy with me years ago, but I didn't see the value. I believe the journal strategy is one of the 5 best ideas that is on this entire program. So I've shared that strategy with many of my clients, and one time I had a woman come up to me in one of my trainings. It was a several-day training, and I shared the journal strategy on the first day. I said, tonight, after the training, go purchase a journal and bring it with you tomorrow, and you can permanently capture the good ideas that you learn in this program. And I showed this particular woman the journal that Cortland had given me. So that night, just like I instructed her to, she went to the bookstore, she found a journal, she came back the next day, she showed me her journal. She said, Eric, I need to share with you a quick story. I said, well, what is it? She said, well, I went to the bookstore just like you instructed, and I saw the journal, the exact journal that you had that Cortland gave you. And I thought, wow, that's a beautiful journal. I'd like to own that journal. And she took it up to the cash register, and they scanned it, and the price came up, and she didn't realize how expensive the journal was. And so she said, oh, I didn't realize it was that much. I'm sorry. Let me go put that one back on the shelf. I need to get another journal, one that's less expensive. And so the clerk gave her the journal. She put it back on the shelf, and she got a less expensive journal. So she was sharing a story with me. And I was fascinated by this because Cortland had given me the journal, and it never occurred to me to think about how much the journal cost. So I asked her, I said, well, I'm just curious, how much was the journal? She said, Eric, it was $70. And when she said that, that blew me away. Cortland not only had given me a front row ticket to the Jim Rohn seminar, he had spent $70 of his money. I barely knew the man, and gave me that journal. And from that story, I've inspired thousands of people to go out and purchase their first journal, or to go out and get a new journal. Maybe they had the strategy from years ago but haven't used it for whatever reason. I want you to have a journal for this program, because you're going to be able to permanently capture all of the elegant ideas that I share. You're going to take these ideas and you're going to advance them further on paper than you can in your mind. And I want to share with you a couple other quick stories about the journal because it's so powerful. My wife, as I mentioned earlier, she works for University of Phoenix, and her manager found out that I do speaking, and he requested that I come in and do a talk for the group. And it was a 20-minute talk, and I began to think about, what information can I share that will have an impact on this group? And one of the ideas was the journal strategy. And so I came in and I shared the journal strategy just like I shared with you. About 3 weeks passed. One of the women in the audience, who I had not yet met prior to that meeting, that was the first time we'd ever met, she calls me on the phone. She says, Eric, I'm so excited. I've got to share this victory with you. And I was like, well, great. I'd love to hear it. And by the way, as you implement these strategies and ideas and you have victories, I love to hear your victories. I love to hear your wins. And oftentimes in my public programs or on these audio programs or in my books, I'll share success stories of my clients. So please email me, eric@ericlofholm.com, ERIC@ERICLOF like fabulous, HOLM like marvelous.com. Eric@ericlofholm.com. Email me your success stories. I love to hear those stories. So she calls me up. She's so excited. She's so enthusiastic. She says, Eric, I've got to share this story with you. I said, great. Well, what is it? She says, well, I donate my time and I work with foster children. I was like, wow, that's awesome. That's great. She says, yeah, well, listen, there's this one child who had something happen early on in his life, and he would not communicate with adults. Everybody, all the adults, they try to talk to this child, and the child wouldn't speak. And so I had been trying for months to get through to this child and get the child to talk to me and trust me. The child wouldn't speak to me. And after you came in and you shared that journal strategy, something clicked in me. Maybe the child would write to me. The child wouldn't speak, but maybe the child would write. So I went out and I bought a journal for that child. And I gave the journal to the child as a gift, just like Cortland gave it to you. And here's what I said to him. I said, now I know that you don't want to talk to me, and that's okay. But there's a way that we can communicate where you don't have to speak. And here's this journal. It's my gift to you. Anything that you want me to talk to you about, you just write it in that journal, and I won't speak. I'll just write it back. And the child began to write. That child's life is going to be impacted and changed forever from the gift of that journal. In addition to getting a journal for yourself, who else could you pick up a journal for and give it to them as a gift? My wife's brother, Jason, several years ago, I gave him a journal. And I taught him the journal strategy. And I taught him to write his goals in his journal. And he had never done goal setting before. And he'd never had a journal before. And I believe he was about 20 years old when I gave him his first journal. And I can tell you, every goal so far that he's written down in that journal, he's accomplished. And this Christmas, as I'm in the sound studio today, it's in December, and Christmas is right around the corner. And Jason was sharing with me, because he has a younger brother who's 16 years old, and he said, Eric, I got Jeffrey, my younger brother, his first journal, and I'm going to give it to him for Christmas. And I'm so excited for what's going to happen in Jeffrey's life as he begins to write these ideas down. Remember, you're 10 times more likely to follow through and take action if you write it down. Here's one last story about this powerful concept. I have a younger brother who last year was in his last year in Little League. And even at the Little League level, parents are extremely competitive. And the coach found out that I used to be a trainer for Anthony Robbins, and I did motivational talks for Tony. And so he asked me if I would come in and do a motivational talk for these Little Leaguers before the year started. So I'm thinking, okay, what can I share with these Little Leaguers that will make an impact? And as I do many times, I began to visualize the talk. And I imagine these 12 and 13-year-olds like punching each other in the arm, not really listening, having a hard time keeping their attention. I mean, this is what I imagined. And interestingly enough, they listened as attentively as any adult group I've ever had. And one of the things I did is I gave all of them journals. I encouraged them to write down a school goal and an athletic goal, and anything that they want in their life, to write those ideas down in that journal. Who else can you give a journal to and impact their life? So I want you to make a commitment right now that you will go out and purchase a journal, and you will capture all of the great ideas in this program, and you'll permanently have those ideas for the rest of your life. Sales superstars have a different mindset from people who are just merely in sales. I mean, that almost is just obvious. And I want to share with you a mindset that sales superstars have. Doctors and lawyers, how long do they go to school before they earn their very first dollar? Could be 10 years, 12 years, 14 years. Maybe if it's a surgeon, it could be as many as 16 years with residency and internships. How much do doctors and lawyers invest in themselves before they earn their first dollar? Maybe $100,000, maybe $200,000. I had a woman one time in one of my public seminars say, Eric, $207,000. I just sent my son through medical school. I thought that was very funny. Now, sales professionals, how long do we go to school before we earn our first dollar? Yeah, in many cases, we don't go to school at all. How much money have we invested in ourselves before we earn our first dollar? And again, in many cases, it's zero. The more you learn, the more you earn. The more you learn, the more you earn. Sales superstars, they treat their profession with the same level and care that a doctor or an attorney would. That's why I work on my skills every single day. If you make the decision to work on your skills with the same level of care as a doctor or an attorney, you will quickly begin to earn the income that a doctor would or an attorney would, or possibly even more. And part of the mindset the sales superstars have is they make selling their profession. They're not embarrassed by being in sales. Sometimes when you ask people, you say, well, what do you do? Well, I'm in sales, until something better comes along. Or they try to hide about the fact that they're in professional selling. Well, what do you do? Well, I'm a consultant, right? No, you're in sales. I'm proud of the fact that I'm in selling. And sales superstars are proud of the fact that they're in selling too. The next concept is one of the most important concepts of the entire program, and it's called the baseline strategy. Right now, you have a baseline in your selling. And I'm going to use income in this example because income is measurable. And let's say as you're listening to this program, you earn $5,000 a month in your sales career. That would be your baseline in terms of income. Your baseline, if you just imagine or draw in your notes a horizontal line, that horizontal line represents your baseline. And it's everything that you bring to the table as a sales professional. It's your product knowledge. It's the number of calls you make on a daily basis. It's your time management. It's your rapport skills. It's your goal setting. It's your presentation skills. It's your ability to handle the common objections that come up. It's your understanding of how technology works. It's your thought process. It's everything. And the baseline strategy is whatever it is that you've been doing to produce the 5,000, keep doing it because it's producing a positive result. And then add one new idea, one new strategy. Thus, you're able to produce a result greater than 5,000. So let's say you were earning $5,000 a month and you weren't asking for referrals. Keep doing everything that you had been doing. Add referrals to your baseline. Perhaps your income jumps to $7,000 a month. Maybe it jumps to $10,000 a month by adding that one idea to your baseline. Now, is there a rule that says you can only add one idea to your baseline? Of course not. You can improve in all areas of your selling. And because of that fact, it's no longer a question of whether or not you can make more sales. It's no longer a question of whether or not you can increase your sales. The question now becomes, how much do you want to increase your sales? How much more money a month do you want to make? And I want to share with you a quick story of how I applied the baseline strategy back when I used to be a trainer for Anthony Robbins. When I worked for Tony, from time to time, I would do a walk-in. And a walk-in is kind of like what it sounds like. If you've ever done business-to-business sales, sometimes you'll just walk into a business, ask for the decision maker, either to generate a lead or to schedule an appointment. And so I would walk into a company that had a sales team like a car dealership or a mortgage office or a real estate office. And I would ask for the person at the front, who would I speak with in regards to being a guest speaker at one of the sales meetings. And if that person was available, I would ask to speak with them and I would do a short presentation, the purpose being to schedule me to be a guest speaker at one of the upcoming meetings. And my closing ratio was 1 out of 8, meaning every time I actually got through to the decision maker, because a lot of times they were busy and I wouldn't be able to get through, I would get 1 yes. Now I thought that was a pretty good ratio. So we were having a sales meeting and my manager asked if anybody on the team had any success stories that they'd like to share with the group. And as soon as he asked that, I raised up my hand and he calls me and he says, "Okay, Eric, what's your story?" I said, "Well, I'm doing my walk-ins. I'm getting a 1 to 8 close ratio on my walk-ins." I said, "I am doing so good on my walk-ins that I have now decided to start calling myself Mr. Walk-In." And this guy on my team's like, "Eric, why are you bragging about 1 out of 8? That's not very good." I said, "Well, really, well, what's your ratio?" He said, "Eric, my ratio is 1 out of 4. Now, obviously, 1 out of 4 is double my close ratio. So I want to find out, how is he able to get the 1 out of 4? So I asked him, I said, "Well, how do you do it? What's your strategy?" He said, "Eric, I do the exact same thing as you, except I do one thing just a little bit different." I said, "Really? Well, what's that?" He said, "Well, we both walk in. We both ask for the decision maker. If the decision maker is available, we meet with him. We exchange business cards. We do a short sales presentation. Eric, at that point, you ask for the business." He says, "Eric, before I ask for the business, I pull out a book." And he grabbed his book and he held his book up and he showed it to me. I want you to imagine that he's now holding this binder and the binder is full with pages. And he opens up the first page of the binder and it says Raving Fans. He said, "Eric, I call my binder my Raving Fans book." And inside that binder, there was the 8.5 by 11 clear sheets that you could load pages into. And he had a book full of testimonials, full of people that endorse him as a speaker and say that he's done a great job in the companies that he's had the privilege of speaking in. So he said, "Eric, if you have a book like this and you start doing your walk-ins, my guess is your ratio would improve." So I modeled him. I went down to the Staples and I bought that binder and I got the clear plastic pages and I began to ask my satisfied customers for endorsement letters. Now, I want to share with you a quick point here. When I would ask for the letter, I did not ask for a testimonial. I would simply say, do you feel like I did a good job today? And they would typically say, well, yeah, Eric, it was great. Could you do me a favor? Well, sure, Eric, what is it? Would you just jot me a short note saying I did a nice job? And they would do it. If you would like to build your own Raving Fans book, the way you do it is you go to your satisfied customers and you say, are you satisfied with the work that I've done? Oh, yeah, you've done a great job. Could you do me a favor? Well, sure. Could you jot me a short note saying I did a nice job? And then they'll do it. And I built up that book. And I started doing my walk-ins. And what do you think happened to my close ratio on my walk-ins? That's right, it went up. Went from 1 out of 8 to 1 out of 4. Now think about this for a second. Once the book was created, I was now able to benefit from the book on every sales presentation that I've made for the rest of my life. And why the book is so powerful is its third-party endorsement. It's somebody other than yourself saying that you do a great job. You see, you can meet with a prospect and you can say, I'm great, my company's great, and that has limited influence. But when someone else says you're great and somebody else says your company's great, it has tremendous, tremendous influence. That book has made me thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. If you believe that that's a good strategy for you, I want to encourage you to take action. Write down in your journal right now, I will begin to ask my satisfied clients for endorsement letters. You ask them by simply stating this. Are you satisfied with the service that I provided? Yes. Could you do me a favor? Sure. Could you jot me a short note saying that I did a nice job? Now, I'm using the story to illustrate the power of the baseline strategy. My baseline prior to my Raving Fans book was 1 to 8. What did I do? I kept doing what I had been doing. I added one new idea, one new strategy. Thus, I was able to produce a greater result. Now, with your baseline, you can add something, like I added the Raving Fans book. You could improve something. Like, let's say that as you're listening, you ask for referrals, but not very effectively. So you're not going to add referrals to your baseline because you already asked for them. You're going to improve your baseline in the area of referrals. And the third thing that you can do is you could subtract something from your baseline. Now, in my public seminars, sometimes I'll share with the group an example of subtraction. And I will go over and I will grab a glass of water that's half full. And then I'll grab one of those pitchers and I'll begin to pour the water into the glass until it fills all the way up to the top. And then I ask the audience a question. I said, now let me ask all of you a question. If I continue to pour the water into the glass, what do you think is going to happen? And of course, people start yelling out, well, it'll overflow. And I said, well, I'm not really sure what's going to happen. Let's test it out. And I begin to pour the water. And sure enough, it does overflow because the water's full. And now there's water dripping all over the hotel floor. It's being soaked up in the carpet from the hotel. And people, sometimes they don't really know what to think of this exercise. And what I share with them is that cup overflowing is a metaphor for many of you with your time management. You see, many of you have so many commitments in your life that there's no way to effectively manage your time because you have too many commitments. And that's how your life looks. All these added responsibilities just overflowing and there's no room for it. One time in one of my time management seminars, I had a woman say, Eric, I challenge you. Okay, what do you challenge me to do? I challenge you to plan my day. I don't think you can do it. You're the time management expert. I don't think you can do it. And I said, well, great. Well, tell me about your day. She says, well, I have my job here and I have this commitment with my kids and then I volunteer my time here and then I do this with the housework. And she continued to list off all of the commitments that she had in her life. Okay, Eric, I challenge you. Show me how to effectively plan my day. And I simply said this to her. I said, you don't have a planning problem. You simply have too many things on your plate. Even as a time management expert, I couldn't plan your day. Addition by subtraction. Subtract things from your baseline. A powerful way to do that is to look at all of the commitments that you have in your life and see if there's any of those commitments that you really don't need to have in your life. Maybe there's a meeting that you go to once a week and it lasts for an hour every week, but you don't really need to go. The only reason you agreed to go is your friend asked you and you didn't want to turn your friend down, and so you just agreed to go, but now you've committed 4 hours a week. You subtract that from your baseline, it frees up 4 hours. You can add something from your baseline, subtract, or improve. Okay, your brain works like a computer. I want to teach you how to think. Ask yourself right now, what could I add, subtract, or improve in my baseline to see an immediate increase in my results? Whatever the answer is, I want you to jot that down in your journal right now. Did you get an answer? I bet you did. Your brain answered it. See, we're learning how to think. One of my most successful clients, his name is Dustin Yoder. He's from Southland Title. And Dustin attended one of my public seminars over 2 years ago. He's now been to 3 of my programs. He's been to my one-day sales mastery course twice, and he just recently attended the Advanced Sales Mastery Bootcamp that I teach with my business partner, Dr. Moyne. And the very first seminar that Dustin ever attended with me, my one-day sales mastery course, I taught the baseline strategy. And Dustin asked himself, what could I add to my baseline that by adding this or subtracting it or improving it, I'd see an increase in my results? And he wrote the answer down. And then he began to think, wow, this is powerful. Maybe tomorrow I'll ask myself the question again. So the day after the seminar, he tried it. He says, well, what could I add, subtract, or improve from my baseline today to increase my sales results? And then his brain answered it again. Dustin asked himself that question every day for a year. And his income went from $60,000 to $120,000 in 12 months. Your subconscious will answer whatever question you ask yourself. He kept finding fresh additional ideas to add, subtract, or improve from his baseline, and it literally doubled his income. Now, here's what's exciting. Dustin, like myself, is in his early 30s. He has that strategy for the rest of his sales career. And that one success idea for his success tool belt will help Dustin become a sales superstar. If you're a sales manager or network marketing leader, bring that concept into one of your upcoming meetings. Have everyone in your company identify what could they add, subtract, or improve from their baseline to increase their results. If you believe that adding that Raving Fans book to your baseline is going to help you increase your results, I want you to write that down. Make a decision to start asking for those Raving Fans testimonials. If you're a manager and your company doesn't have a Raving Fans book, that when you hire on a new salesperson, you give them this book to help them with the sales process, create a Raving Fans book. Make photocopies and distribute it to all of your sales team. That one idea will dramatically increase sales by thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. The next concept that we're going to talk about is one of my favorite topics, and it has the potential to dramatically increase your income. This topic, this strategy, this idea will make you money. It's a concept that sales superstars have, and it's the concept of mastery. So jot down mastery in your notes. And if you haven't been listening, you've just been kind of driving and you're in a daze, or if you're at home and you're working on the computer or you're preparing dinner, stop everything you're doing right now and listen to what I'm going to tell you, because this is going to make you money. It's the concept of mastery. And I work with sales professionals every single day. I work with 50,000, 60,000, 70,000 sales professionals, and I've been doing it for years, and it's seldom that I come across a master of selling. You see, most people that I meet, they're strong enough to get by in the area of referrals. They're goal setting, strong enough to get by. Objection handling, strong enough to get by. Rapport building skills, strong enough to get by. Yet they have not committed to mastery in any of these key areas. And mastery is a very different distinction. And I want to share with you a quick story to illustrate the power of mastery so you really get this concept that I'm sharing with you. And it's about the number one golfer in the world, Tiger Woods. Tiger's first year out of Stanford, he wins $60 million in prize money and endorsements right out of Stanford, which is not a bad rookie year. I'm sure that you would agree. Now, he follows up that rookie year, his second year in golf. He wins the Masters, one of the major tournaments. But he doesn't just win it. He wins it by the largest margin of victory in the history of the tournament. He wins the Masters by like 12 strokes. And after Tiger wins the Masters, he's watching videotape of the tournament with his coach. His coach's name is Butch Harmon. He's the #1 golf trainer in the world today. It's interesting that Tiger has a coach. You would think, he's the #1 golfer in the world already. What does he need a coach for? Superstars hold the belief, and the belief is this: there's always room to improve. There's always room to improve. So Tiger as a coach, he's watching videotape of the Masters. He just won by 12 strokes. And together, he and his coach decide that Tiger has not yet mastered his golf swing, which is a scary thought for the competition. So they tear apart the swing and they begin to work on it. They reinvent the swing from scratch. Now, what would you imagine happened to Tiger Woods' results when he reinvented his swing? If you guessed that they went down, you're absolutely correct in the short term. Tiger only won one tournament in the next 18 months. After he would lose yet another tournament, the press would interview him. Tiger, you won the Masters by this record margin. Now you can't win a tournament. What happened? Tiger's response was, I'm getting better. He said, well, your results sure don't show it. He's like, no, trust me, I'm getting better. And then one day, it all comes together. Tiger wins 10 out of 14 tournaments. He wins 7 in a row. Now, to put that in perspective, the most number of tournaments that Jack Nicklaus ever won consecutively was 3 in his entire career. Tiger, in his early 20s, won 7 tournaments consecutively. And then he went on to win the 4 majors all in a row, which has never been done in the history of golf, all because of his commitment to mastery. So here's my question for you. What is the one area of your sales career that if you mastered, you would see the biggest increase in your results? What's the one area of your sales career, if you mastered, you would see the biggest increase in your sales results? I'm teaching you how to think. Your brain will answer whatever question you ask yourself. You see, nobody came to me and said, Eric, here's the mastery question. I want you to ask yourself this. I came up with it out of thought. Now, what would it mean to you if you took that one area and you focused on it and you became a master of that area? I said earlier, one way to access personal power is to make a decision about how your life is going to be different. Make a decision today to get on the path of mastery in the area that you just wrote down in your notes and watch your income soar. The mastery income ratio in many industries is 10-1. A master in that industry oftentimes will earn 10 times as much as someone who's merely good in that industry. A great example of this is in the real estate industry. Ralph Roberts is one of the true masters of real estate. Ralph's out of Detroit, and he's become a friend of mine. He's also a trainer like I am. And Ralph Roberts last year sold 600 homes in Detroit, all while also having a speaking and writing career. Now, somebody who's a good realtor may do as many as 60 homes in a year, yet Ralph did 10 times that amount. Ralph has some phenomenal books that I've really enjoyed. And to find out more about Ralph's books, go to ralphroberts.com. ralphroberts.com. Here's one more powerful concept around mastery. When you put a focus in anything, you'll see, in most cases, an immediate increase in results. For example, if you focus on your referrals, you'll see an immediate increase. If you focus on closing, you'll see an immediate increase in your closing skills. After that immediate increase, though, you'll hit a plateau. If you work towards mastery in anything in your life, playing a musical instrument, selling, business, weight loss, health, you're going to hit a plateau. Many people, when they get on that plateau, the results are not happening fast enough, and so they quit. This happens in network marketing. It happens in weight loss. It happens in selling. It happens in making phone calls. Here's the strategy around mastery. Endure the plateaus. Endure the plateaus. You see, what happens is you put a focus on referrals, you'll see a spike in improvement, and then it'll flatline, and you'll hit a plateau. If you're willing to stay on the path of mastery, eventually you'll end that plateau with a breakthrough. Very, very powerful. Endure the plateau. We're going to do an income exercise right now. And the purpose of this income exercise is to disturb you. Now that's interesting. Well, why would Eric want to disturb me? Well, sometimes when we're disturbed, we become motivated. You see, we're motivated by two things: gaining pleasure or avoiding pain. We're motivated to gain pleasure or avoid pain. There are two ways of looking at income. You can look at income and say, Eric, I make this amount of money a month. And maybe it's a somewhat impressive amount. Eric, I make $10,000 a month. Okay, well, that's great. You can also look at income in terms of how much money are you leaving on the table a month? Meaning, like, what are you capable of making versus what you actually make? You see, the same person says, well, Eric, I make $10,000 a month. If I ask him, well, how much money are you leaving on the table? He might say, well, Eric, I'm leaving $20,000 a month on the table. Now, if you're leaving $20,000 a month on the table, but you're actually making 10, that's not as impressive as the statement I make $10,000 a month. For example, consider this. What if somebody said, well, I make $1 million a year? Would you think that that's impressive? Somebody go, well, yeah, Eric, $1 million a year, that'd be incredible. Well, it's not so good if you're Tiger Woods. You'd be in a major slump if you only made $1 million a year. See, it's all about compared to what. Jim Rohn says, how high should a tree grow? As high as it can. How much money should you make a year? As much as you can. So I want to do a little exercise, and for some of you, this will disturb you, but perhaps disturb you into motivation to go out and take action and truly achieve the income of your dreams. What I'd like you to do in your journal is jot down in your journal right now, how much do you earn a month? How much do you earn? Just ask your subconscious the question. Whatever the answer is, jot it in your notes. Above that, jot down, how much are you capable of making a month? How much are you capable of making a month? Ask your subconscious the question. Whatever it is, jot the answer down. Now subtract the two. Maybe you earn $7,000 a month, but you're capable of $17,000. So in that example, subtract $17,000 from 7, and then that'll give you the answer of $10,000. So subtract the two. That's the amount of money that you're leaving on the table on a monthly basis. Now, for some of you, that amount of money, it's a little bit disturbing. Maybe you're leaving $1,000 a month on the table, $5,000 a month on the table, $10,000 a month on the table. For some of you, maybe even more. So I want you, as Dr. Phil says, get real with that number. That's the money that you're leaving on the table on a monthly basis. But that's not really very disturbing when you consider. Take that number and multiply it by 12. So in my example, the 10,000 times 12 would be 120,000. Once you multiply it by 12, I want you to circle that number. So go ahead and do that now. Now that you've multiplied it by 10, and by the way, if you're driving, when you get home, do the exercise, but you could just do it in your head for right now. Now, hopefully, it won't be so disturbing that it affects your driving, but I want you to think about this. Look at that number, the circled number now, after you multiplied it by 10. That's the amount of money that you're leaving on the table on a yearly basis. So I want you to get real with that number. In the example I was sharing, it's 120,000. Now, for most of you, that should be a pretty disturbing number. That's money that belongs to you based on your skill set, based on your opportunity. Now what I want you to do is I want you to take that circled number and I want you to multiply it by 10 and put a box around it. In my example, 120,000 was the circled number. Times 10 is $1.2 million. You see, many of you, as you're listening to this audio program, you will be in sales for at least another 10 years. That number in the rectangular box, that's the amount of money that if you don't make a change, you're going to leave on the table over the next 10 years. And I want you to get real with that number because that is money that belongs to you. And for most of you, that's a pretty disturbing number. Now I want you to do one more thing. I want you to take that number that's in that box and I want you to multiply it by 3 and then put a triangle around it. So in my example, the number in the box was 1.2 million. Times 3 is 3.6 million. And then put a rectangle around that number. You see, for me, I'm planning on being in sales for at least another 30 years. If you're like me and you're planning on being in sales for at least another 30 years, that's the amount of money that potentially you're going to leave on the table. Money that belongs to you. You deserve that amount of money based on your opportunity and based on your skill set. Now, that's future money. Hasn't happened yet. So there's something you can do about it now. The way you recover that potential lost income, it's a function of skill set and it's a function of action. So here's my question to you. Now that you know that, are you going to leave that money on the table? Or are you going to do something about it? And if you are going to do something about it, what specifically are you going to do about it? How are you going to make sure that that amount of money that you deserve to earn, how are you going to make sure that you do earn that income?